I'm just gonna put my foot on the floor and I'm not lifting till I see God or a checkered flag.
Hello, welcome back to Racing Thoughts and IndyCar podcast. I'm Megan Dennis.
And I'm Meg Taylor.
And we are back to discuss the news of the week coming out of Long Beach, previewing into Barber. We are, at the time of recording, about 2 weekends out until we will be there. Actually, I guess this time in 2 weeks we'll have finished the race and hopefully be recording our post-race thoughts from there live in Birmingham. But to begin that, before we get into Barber and everything that is Birmingham, Alabama, and that magical, mythical park that is there, news of the week. So starting out with not a lot of interesting stuff on the first couple but kind of stuff related to the 500. McLaren is doing custom liveries this year, so a trade-off kind of almost going back to what they did 2 years ago with this, that they are doing, it seems from the kind of preview stuff they've put out, like it'll be similar to their existing paint schemes, but they are doing special 500 liveries. They didn't do this last year. They did do it in 2023. So I think that's interesting, but at the time of the recording, we don't know anything because they come out tomorrow.
What a shame that we don't know it yet. But I don't know. I really liked the special livery that McLaren ran a few years ago. So I have a feeling that it's going to be really good regardless. And I'm going to be biased. I know I'm going to like it no matter what. But that's just a personal thing.
Second, couple bits of news. Again, a lot of this does have to do with the 500, despite the fact we do have 2 races in between now and then. We are gearing up for it. Is what it is. 500 is the biggest, spectacle in motorsports, so of course it's going to be a big deal. With that, the street signs are now up in Indianapolis. We will, I guess, kind of expand more on that when we kind of highlight the month of May, but it's exciting, for all the drivers in the 500. They get their names on different street signs throughout downtown Indy, so those are officially up, which I guess kind of really kicks off that we are getting into that time of year.
Yeah, absolutely. It really does signal that this is kind of, all right, it's crunch time. It's really starting to come forward. And I don't know, I always enjoy the content that comes out of seeing drivers post with their street names. So very, very exciting stuff coming forward.
Do you want to highlight this next one? Yeah, you take this next one.
I do want to take this next one. Okay, so this is also going to be kind of tying in with the 500 and kind of the format of everything with it. But if you know me, you know that I'm a Boston sports fan, specifically Patriots, and Rob Gronkowski, our famous tight end, is going to be the snake pit marshal. Now, basically, that is just saying that he's going to be kind of like, I don't even know how to describe a snake pit marshal. He just kind of like brings the vibes. And if you know anything about Rob Gronkowski, he loves a party. And I think this is kind of right up his alley. And I'm so excited to see what he does because honestly, it's just going to be chaos and a lot of him giggling. And I love this so much.
I really don't have anything else to add to that.
It's not really that important. This is just me being a Patriots fan and seeing my boy Rob just do what he does and act really stupid in front of a lot of people with a party going on in the background, and it just so happens to be the 500. And so I'm very excited to see what shenanigans ensue.
All right, last couple bits of news. I think this next one, honestly is a little, in my opinion, more interesting about 500 news because we know over the next month we're going to get a lot of 500 news, that big, small, whatever. But we got the Long Beach viewership numbers out last week. As far as IndyCar ratings go, they were higher than last year. However, you do have to take into account that last year that they were on the USA Network and that this year they are on Fox. So we are going from a network television to one of the main, big four broadcasting. So IndyCar ratings came in at around 500,000, which is the 4th worst weekend without an NFL game conflicting with race times since 2016.
Ugh, that is brutal.
And it is, and it's following Thermal, which for a viewership standpoint was also not good. And I think this is something that we had all this hype at the beginning. You had St. Pete, which had the highest ratings in years for the St. Pete race. And now you're running into, I think Fox has really dropped the ball with the scheduling. I think when you consider that from St. Pete until Barber, it'll have been 60 days for 4 races is way too long to have if you were trying to grow this viewership and you're trying to grow this market. I think it's a real big problem when it's Masters weekend and you're going to put the race at the same time as the last rounds of the Masters. You're going to put it on at the same time as NASCAR, which you know you are already having to fight that demographic for. So I think this is something that IndyCar and Fox really needs to figure out. What is the game plan here? What does this look like from a scheduling standpoint? How are we going to fix this from viewership? Because it's like, yeah, anyone can sit here and say, like, oh, it's this, it's that, it's this, but it's like, Long Beach is the race outside of the 500. Like, it is. It's the one the drivers want to win. It's the one of the most highly attended races outside of the 500. It's the longest on the calendar. And the fact we didn't have the promotion for it, like we have for the other races, the fact that the numbers were so much lower than the first two, and we're just continuing to see these big dips in viewership. Like, the ball's been dropped.
No, I mean I agree with that. I mean, case in point was with the last race, I was also simultaneously watching the Masters. So like I don't know what their thought process is behind it. Like sure, we're avoiding a lot of like NFL conflicts, but I don't know. Where do we go from here then? What does Fox do?
Well, I think a lot of it, to some extent, is self-inflicted in the sense of like you can't have 60 days in between race one and race four.
Yeah.
We had all this hype. We had everything. We had the commercials leading up to the season. We had the Super Bowl. We had record viewership numbers for St. Pete. And then, we have St. Pete, and then we have 3 weeks off. And then we have another 3 weeks. And then we have a race, thermal, which is like, like there's a lot of controversy around that from a viewership standpoint and a fan standpoint and an accessibility standpoint, which neither here nor there. We didn't cover thermal, so we're not going to take the time to get into that. But like, there's that issue of it. And then you also factor in that, like, okay, then we had 3 more weeks before Long Beach. That's another large gap. We had
Mhm.
Long Beach last week. Now we have 2 more weeks off before Barber. Like, that's just, we're killing the momentum in the
Yeah.
sense of like, why are casual fans going to show up? Why are they going to make a point to remember the schedule? When is the next race? When it's like, it is such large gaps in between.
Yeah, I remember talking about this last year when the schedule had come out and we had seen what the month of May was looking like because Barber is the first weekend of May. And I remember a lot of people were like up in arms about Barber being included in the month of May. So right now, looking at the schedule, you have Barber, which is May 4th, the Soncio Grand Prix, which is May 10th, and then you
That's
have
the Indy road course.
yeah, the Indy road course. And then you have the 500. That feels like three very rushed things that should be entirely separate and could have been scheduled very differently.
I was gonna say right after the 500, you go straight into Detroit, which is good. You're gonna hopefully get that carryover from the 500 to
Mhm.
Detroit, but it's like I feel like once we hit the beginning of May with Barber, we hit the ground running, and then it's weekend after weekend after weekend, which is good if you're a fan. Probably bad for the teams in the grand scheme of things,
Yeah.
just because it's a lot of pressure on the teams. But it's just kind of like I think we missed the window. I
Yeah.
think it's you can't pile everything into between May to July because you got to get it in before football season starts. But the beginning, when you are trying to hook people, that's when you have the least amount of stuff in there.
Yeah. I think they totally swapped how the season should have been because it is basically just hitting the ground running at this point with like very frequent races. And it feels like it should have been like, okay, you had all of this promo leading up to the season. It was such a big deal. You had so many people excited about it. Should have hit the ground running from the start and then kind of tapered as you got closer to like football season.
Like if there was a time for a back-to-back race, it should have been right after St. Pete. Because that would have
100%.
been like, oh, new people. Oh, I showed in. This race was fun. Okay, I'll watch next weekend. Oh,
Exactly.
it's
Like
it's
you
three
already have
weeks.
people hooked. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like 3 weeks is way too long. People lose interest like nobody's business. Fox,
And
we had high
just
hopes.
and I still have high hopes, but it's kind of disappointing in
Yeah.
this front. And I think it's also to an extent it's kind of disappointing from the IndyCar both series standpoint and the driver standpoint of like instead of being like, hey, we recognize that there was an issue that occurred that should have probably been fixed and like, we should have thought this through both on an IndyCar standpoint, a Fox standpoint, like these conversations should have been had. There's been almost like a lack of accountability, and I know less so with Long Beach from what I've seen, but definitely after Thermal and even after Long Beach, you've seen like drivers like Graham Rahal get like really kind of up in arms that it's like people are upset about this. People are upset that this is how things have fallen and that we have kind of seen this giant dip in momentum. And it is kind of this idea of like, where do we go from here? And I'm not saying it's our job to find the answers because it's not, Lord knows, but
Yeah, we
like
don't get paid for that, Megan.
they can.
I mean, like, I would love that. I don't think our ideas would be well thought out, but we'd have ideas.
I can plan things. Give me a calendar. I'm real good at calendar making. This semester has taught me anything.
Oh my God, so true. And get you specifically an Excel spreadsheet. You are so good at those too.
We'll figure it out. But I don't know. I think all that to say, I think it's disappointing when you have such a historic race like Long Beach get so poorly covered when it easily could have been like, put it the weekend before. There was nothing going on. There wasn't NASCAR. There wasn't the Masters. And it's
Yeah.
like, this is stuff that's going to draw away viewership wide and just frustrating from a fan perspective. And we are people. I mean, that's part of why we have this podcast from the get-go is that we want to grow this sport. We
Hmm.
want to see this sport thrive. Yes, we are just two girls sitting in our respective apartments discussing this, but that's still one where it's like we've seen our own viewership numbers, double since the beginning of this season, which means there is a growing interest there, which
Hmm.
means when it's not being marketed from someone who does care about the sport, it's frustrating. And I'm sure it has to be frustrating from the people who are getting paid for this to be their job to worry about. But it's like something's got to give. And it needs to give very, very quickly because I fear that if we continue down this path now, it's not going to be like, oh, we'll fix it for next year because the mark's been missed.
Hmm. I wonder if they're really trying to like hold on to the 500s coming up. That's what we really need to worry about, which is like, again, totally fair. It is the 500. It does require a certain amount of attention, but that should have been taken into consideration, like we said, when planning. Like, why do we have Barber, the Indy Road Course, and the 500 right there so close together? And I'm just like, this is just like me being nosy, but I'm like, I wonder what the conversations are leading up to those decisions actually being made.
Mr. Doug Bowles, if you would like to ever come on the podcast and tell us about these decisions, you are welcome anytime. And I will say, not to be a Debbie Downer wrapping up our news for this week, positively, we did see that for in-person attendance at Long Beach, that there was nearly a 6K increase from last year to this year, which is huge. And like, I know you didn't get to watch any of like Friday practice, but it was one where they had Jack Harvey sitting in the crowd. First of all, Jack Harvey was so excited to be sitting among the fans. He was like, I've never done this before. It's like, yeah, we know, Jack. You've been driving for 500 teams for the last 6 years, but that's irrelevant. But it was one where it's like the Friday practice looked like a Saturday quali or looked like even like a race day. And so the fact that we're seeing that for a Friday practice is huge. And I hope we continue to see that for a lot of the races throughout the year. So, yes, I know I have just sat here and I've about like the TV viewership side of things. And that part I'm stick with what I said. I stand by it. I think it was really poorly done. I think the ball has been dropped by those who need to be most concerned about what is happening here. But I also think it's really good to see that at least in person we are seeing an uptick in people going. And I would like to be able to find some way to continue to follow that and see how that grows. See, like, is this a Long Beach thing? Because, like, Long Beach is Long Beach. It's historic. It's the 50th anniversary. Like, all of that. Like, was that a factor? Or is this something that maybe we'll get to see at Barber? And I guess we'll be able to know at Barber because we can compare it to, like, what was last year. Like, I, to an extent, hope it's a lot busier. I also don't at the same time for
I was
reasons
just about
I
to
don't.
say.
But like from the idea of I care about this sport growing, I hope there is. I don't want to be waiting on those trams for an hour.
Oh God, just strap like bags of ice to my knees if we're gonna have to walk around.
So speaking of bags of ice strapped to your knees,
What a perfect segue.
what a perfect segue. We should always do it. Meg, we are 2 weeks out from being in Birmingham, Alabama. Are you ready to talk about Barber?
Oh my God, I am so ready to talk about Barber. I have been ready to talk about Barber for months.
So, for those who do not know, Barber Motorsports Park is located on the outskirts of Birmingham, Alabama. It's technically in Leeds. It's near the Buc-ee's and the Bass Pro Shop. Anyone who is curious there. The race will consist of 90 laps on a 2.3-mile circuit. It is a really, really, really cool place, like, quite honestly. We were lucky enough to go last year. It was my first ever motorsport in-person experience. It was really kind of my first taste of getting into IndyCar. Meg, I believe it was also your first race, if I'm remembering correctly.
You are remembering correctly. It was my first race that I had ever actually watched, like 2, 3 years ago. And going to see it in person for the first time, like ever going to a racetrack, and also getting to meet you for the first time. That was really cool. We have very fond memories of Barber, and we're so excited to go back.
Genuinely so excited. Like, it honestly could not fall at much of a worse time of the year for me, as far as school schedule goes. But
Mood.
like it's truly one where, I'm missing a faculty meeting on Friday, and I told my department head, I was just like, I've had this trip planned for over a year because it's one where, quite honestly, the day we left from the race, it was like, all right, we are coming back next year.
Yeah.
It wasn't a question of if, it was just a matter of like, all right, what are the logistics going to look like? And that's exciting. And I think that's really a testament. I lost my train of thought. So Meg, do you want to tell the people about listening viewership about what's on your hat right now?
Yes. So for those who cannot see, which is literally everybody except for Megan, I have a little rubber duck that we acquired at Barber last year, and he keeps falling off my hat this time. This is little Petito. We got him from our buddy Noe, who we met just kind of like wandering around. And really cool guy, massive Pato, massive McLaren fan. So shout out Noe. Hope to see you again this year. But yeah, we kind of took him around the paddock and the racetrack and took a bunch of photos. I absolutely spammed my poor Instagram last year with the whole weekend with it. And I plan on doing that again this year. So be on the lookout for little rubber duck content.
For those who may not know about Barber, it is referred to as the Augusta of motorsports in the sense of like this park is beautiful. You know, I mean, being from Alabama, I am probably a little bit biased towards it, but like it's nestled in the trees. It's really like it's genuinely just really, really, really pretty. Around the track, Mr. Barber, I can't think of what his first name is, but Mr. Barber, who owns the park, who founded the park, they have the Vintage Motorcycle Museum, which is the biggest motorcycle museum in the world, located there. On top of that, he also is a very interesting art collector. So I think that is something that also makes Barber very, very, very unique in that, like, all throughout the park, you have a lot of like very, very cool, but very honestly kind of weird art set up in different places. So whether that's the fighters that I believe are off of turn 9 in between there, whether it's the lady in the pond, which is honestly kind of creepy, but she's also kind of cool. Or if you watched last year and if you didn't, oh my God, you need to go find her because she is a legend. And we are going to go to the bridge this year and actually go see her up close and personal. But
Oh,
that is the queen of IndyCar, Georgina. Last year during the race, Georgina decided she needed to very much get in on the action and fell from the bridge. So she is zip tied to one of the bridges that they drive under throughout the park. She fell from the bridge right in front of Scott McLaughlin, who actually ended up going on to win the race. Scott ended up running over her hand. You get some of the funniest, if I can find it, I think we'll probably post it again, but you get some probably the funniest audio clips of these radios all year where they're just like, oh my God, there's a woman on the track. They're all just like, oh wait, it's that stupid mannequin.
so for clarification, because I don't think we said it, Georgina is not a real person. She is actually just a mannequin. She's not just a human person that's zip tied to the bridge.
I'm not here to judge Georgina. She can be whatever she wants to be.
Listen, we love Georgina. She's an icon. She's a queen. She did terrify us because we didn't know that she was a mannequin when she fell. And we had like watched it. That was
Yeah.
terrifying. But
Yeah.
then we were like, oh, it's just Regina.
Just Georgina. I also would pay to get the video clip of the booth at that time, since apparently, like, James Hinchcliffe could not contain himself and literally had to have, like, be off the mic for, like, 10 minutes because he couldn't stop laughing. So, like, if that footage is out there, someone release it for the good of everybody on this planet.
That would be so funny. Oh my God. I would kill to hear what he had to say.
But I think just in addition to that, like I said, it's a really cool park, first and
Yeah.
foremost. I think I've made that kind of clear. But on top of that, it's a really cool like track. So it has a lot of elevation changes. I think it actually may have some of the biggest elevation changes that we see throughout the season. It has the double S's going into the back end of the track. Just really truly all in all. And it's one where I think drivers either they really love Barber or they really hate Barber is kind of the reality of that one. But I'm so excited to go back. Like, we were really lucky with the tickets that we purchased. I'm not going to say lucky, but like with the tickets that we had really kind of benefited us with, I think, our experience of we didn't go for Friday last year just because of scheduling stuff. We are lucky enough to get to go this year, so that'll be a new experience to talk about. But we were there for Saturday. We had GA with pit lane access on there, getting to walk through the paddock, see all of that. And then Saturday we actually had
Sunday. We
yeah,
had
sorry.
the specific like Margaritaville tickets or whatever it was called last year. I forget.
But
But
like it's
like
not hospitality, but they're kind of like a VIP like experience where we got food and drink and then like a pretty decent view of the track
Mhm.
during the race.
Yeah, I think that was worth it. One, because we knew we had a dedicated spot, which Saturday we, like Megan just said, we only had the GA tickets plus like the paddock pass, like pit lane access, whatever. And like that alone did not cost us a lot. So like if you're worried about the cost of this, like it is very reasonably priced. Like we 100% splurged on like the hospitality stuff. But that was just because I don't know about you, Megan, but I am certainly at an age where I don't necessarily want to be sitting in like the bleachers or anything like that. So it was just like nice to have a spot.
That and also like we fully had food and drink like completely included, including alcoholic beverages like the whole day on
Yeah.
Sunday, which was just that was nice too because like it's like any sporting event, concession food is not cheap. So knowing that we had that covered did kind of help. I will say one thing that I also really love, and I think even to talk about like stuff that Cass talked about with St. Pete, was that like quite honestly, I think we could have brought about just about anything into Barber and it would have been fine. For Saturday, we brought our own drinks, we brought our own food, we had a whole cooler, we brought, lawn chairs to be able to sit in. Like that was all really, really nice to be able to have that. So like yeah, we had GA, but we still had everything we really could need there and easily accessible.
We were so close to where we parked too. Like where we parked our car and where we ended up like parking our stuff for Saturday was like right across a road. And so it was like super easy to gain access to the parking lots. It was easy, honestly, to even get out, like leaving the park. And, like if we needed to leave something in the car for whatever reason, we could have easily just gone back. But like again, we had everything that we needed with us. And they didn't really like, I don't know, they didn't really care. It sounds terrible to say when you think about it, but like they really didn't. I mean, we joke about it all the time. The one rule at Barber, don't jump
No
the
jumping
fence.
fence, which is still true.
It
I
is.
don't think we're going to be able to successfully accomplish that one this year. And quite honestly, I don't know if I want to, but
I
off
mean,
the
like,
table.
just because they tell me I can't makes me want to do it.
Feel like we need a don't jump the fence like counter for this year. How many times are they going to say it over the span of 3 days? Everyone, put your guesses in now. Closest person will get a shout out on the next episode because that's all we can offer you.
No, but it was honestly really nice to be able to like bring our own stuff so that we didn't have to worry about spending an excessive amount. Like, yeah, sure, we brought a couple of like the seltzers or whatever that we brought, but it was like just nice to have like a sandwich that we got at the grocery store. And we had water that we didn't have to pay for. So it
Yeah.
was just like, okay, I love that we were able to do that.
Mhm.
Because again, cuts down on cost, but also is just like, it's nice to have your own stuff.
Yeah. And like unlike Cass's experience at St. Pete, like yeah, we brought in our own water, but they had water refill stations like easily accessible too. So it's like if we needed to fill them up, that was an option. They had the trams to be able to, because it's a big park. And with the elevation change, like if you were trying to go uphill, they're a little steep, I'm not gonna lie.
Listen,
So
to get from where we parked to like the pit, that was an insane hill to hike.
mhm. We did that once. And I was like, nope, we're
We were
out.
like, immediately, no, no more.
Yep. So that's kind of, I guess, Barber in a nutshell as far as that goes. I think the other thing that I want to touch about is my favorite livery of the year is going to be a Barber. And it's only my favorite livery just because of Barber last year. So we are going to get the Good Ranchers Chevy number 3 Scott McLaughlin car, also effectively known as the Meat Wagon. Yay,
Do
Meat
you?
Wagon!
We love the meat wagon. Do you still have the fan?
I hate to say that I actually threw that away like 2 weeks ago when I was cleaning out my car.
Megan, my heart.
It'd been under the seat for too long. It was gross. It had to go.
Oh
But it
man.
was a lifesaver because Alabama in May. Actually, we got really lucky, and it was actually relatively like for Alabama in May. It was kind of cool, but like it was still humid. It was still hot, but like it could have
That
been a
was
lot
cool.
worse. Oh, by a lot, a lot. Like the next week after that, it was like 20 degrees hotter.
Oh my God, that kills me. Because I remember last year when I was like flying in from Boston on like a Friday night. And when was it last year? It was like mid-April, like end of April or something like that.
End of April. It may have been like this weekend last year.
Regardless, it was cold and rainy when I had taken off from Boston Logan. And I'm like pulling up into Alabama. I'm like, oh man, this is toasty. It is warm. I'm like, that felt hot. Like
And
that's
it
as
was
hot.
like 78, and I was just like, oh no, it's like cold. It was like 90 degrees last week.
Oh, man. So
So
I think I'm gonna have to really prepare myself this year for an increase in temperature, aren't I?
I haven't, I'll be honest, I have not checked the weather for Birmingham yet, but I am saying yes. I'm also going to make sure I pack ponchos because it is May in Alabama and we really have to plan for all the weather. Oh, I guess I didn't finish actually explaining the meat wagon. I just said I was excited for the meat wagon. So
We are excited for the meat wagon.
the backstory behind the meat wagon, though, was that like yes, it was hot, it was humid. I think it was Saturday. It may have been Sunday morning, but I'm pretty sure it was Saturday.
No, it was Saturday.
We had finally it was Saturday. We had finally made it around to where like they have a big Ferris wheel at Barber. We finally made it to that fan zone area and like it was hot. I was dying. I was uncomfortable and complaining. And like I was like, okay, there's all these vendor booths. Like someone's gonna have a fan. Like they always have a fan at like one of these things. And like there were no fans. There were no like no one had a paper fan. No one had I was just like, really? Like nothing. They're giving me out koozies. I don't need a koozie right now. It's not helping me. And then we finally get to like the Good Ranchers booth, which mind you, like the IndyCar radio had kept talking about like Scotty Mac and the meat wagon this weekend. We kept seeing it on like promo stuff happening. So like it had already kind of become this funny joke. And then like we get up there and like, you know, are given like Good Ranchers meat wagon fans. And at that moment, it was the most exciting thing I think had ever happened to me in my life because I needed that so badly. And since then, I've become a meat wagon stan.
Yep. We really, really, really needed those meat wagon fans. And, good ranchers, I really hope you bring those back.
I feel quite confident that they're going to
Yeah.
come through.
But that fan zone, I like had totally forgotten about how kind of chaotic that place was. Yeah, they have a bunch of really cool vendors. Like a lot of the sponsors have like tents and everything. Like that area is also where Pato has his own dedicated merch tent too. So that's always going to be kind of chaotic. I do really want to go on the Ferris wheel. Maybe.
We didn't go last year because it cost like $15, and we were both just like,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
Yeah, I think that's why. Yeah. Now I remember why we didn't go on it. So, like, not worth it. But they have some really cool and very talented artists as well. And then, oh, who was it? Who sponsored that entire tent of like technical and mechanical job kind of like stations?
I don't remember who the sponsor was, but I was about to say that they had essentially like a job fair there. And it was like
Yeah.
it was an automotive thing, which that is one thing that like it did have some of the stuff because like Toyota has a big plant in Alabama, Hyundai has a big plant, Mercedes has a big plant. So you do have a lot of like that industry there, which should kind of tie in. But I did really like that they were like boots on the ground of like it was IndyCar related, but it was also just like, hey, these are mechanical, like technical related jobs of like if these are an area you want to work in or you are needing employment, like we can find you ways to get into this as soon as possible.
Yeah. And I also really liked that they kind of catered to everybody with that, which was really cool. And me being me, I see everything kind of through the lens of like teaching and especially like STEM education. And the booths and the people that they had talking there and doing these stations and these activities was really encouraging because it wasn't, Megan had just said, it wasn't just within IndyCar, but it's within a lot of different automotive and mechanical like careers. But they also had like these really cool hands-on activities that these kids were just like eating up that I would just like remember sitting back and watching and being like, oh, this is really, really cool to watch like in real time. These kids get an excitement about something at a place where they can see kind of like, what they could potentially be doing with this type of knowledge. And so that was really awesome to see as well.
All in all, highly recommend Barber, and hopefully all things go correctly. We'll be saying the same thing in a few weeks' time. All right, predictions?
Let's see. I think, well, because Scotty won last year, and I'm like, I think he's due to have some good things happen. I'd like to see him do well. I'm never gonna count out Alex Palou. I think Marcus Armstrong is gonna he's gonna do something this weekend. He's gonna do something that race weekend. I don't know what. And I think he's gonna be a name that we hear that, I don't know, might shake things up a little bit, good or bad. But then, I always have to go with my classic. I can't not. I'm going to keep saying it until I get it. I need to see a Pato Rossi Kyle podium.
You took mine in that like I do think there's a strong likelihood that Scotty Mack could do back to back. I also think there's a chance that we're gonna see kind of Joseph Newgarden rebound because he was third at St. Pete, but then like bad thermal, bad Long Beach. So I do kind of expect Joseph Newgarden to rebound. That's just kind of what Joseph does.
Okay, but on the other hand, we know kind of how Penske's been recently, where it's like, okay, only one of their drivers can do well.
Then it's gonna be Willpower just because he's Willpower. If we're going on rotation, it's Willpower's turn.
Fair, I'll take it.
My heart is telling me Alexander Rossi, but I fear if I say it, I'm going to jinx him again. So I'm not saying it, but I feel like the ECR car has so much potential in it. I really, 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 really do. I feel like we've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like I've heard Rossi talk about it on Off Track about how he is excited about road courses. But I don't want to get my hopes up, and I don't want him to get his hopes up and then it'd be sad again.
Okay, so we're not saying that one.
Nope.
We're not putting that out. Okay. So moving on, after you said Joseph Newgarden, who do you think?
Honestly, I think Christian Lundgaard. Like, he has been so good consistently
Yeah.
this year. He is quite honestly hands down the best of the three McLarens right now. Like
Yeah.
in a consistent nature across the three tracks. I mean, yes, like Pato got his win, but honestly, like you can kind of contribute that to the work that like Lundgaard did to
Yeah.
allow Pato that opportunity. He's third in the championship right now for a reason. Like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I know
We
someone
know.
immediately off the top of my mind who's not going to like that answer, but that's not going to make me change what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, unfortunately, not unfortunately. No, I do agree. I think we know historically that when a driver is attuned to a McLaren car, they are insanely good. And that has been Christian Lundgaard this year. And, like he's a good driver. He got that for a reason. Like, it's just unfortunate that it is not my driver who is attuned to that car right now. I'm real sad about it. But, when McLaren's good, McLaren's good. And it fully is Christian Lundgaard right now.
Yeah. It feels weird to not mention an Andretti driver, but I really just I don't feel it in my bones. And that's really
Yeah.
what we just go off here is our vibes. Sometimes logic, usually vibes. My vibes don't feel Andretti. I have two that I think we need to watch for Barber.
Interessante.
First one, I think this one's going to shock you. Graham Rahal. And I don't really,
Explain.
again, we never really know what we're watching them for.
Fair.
That's the big thing when I'm saying our one, like my one to watch. I can't tell you what, but we're gonna watch Graham Rahal. But also, like, I mean, to give Graham credit, he's been in this series for like 14 years. The dude,
He
and
knows what he's doing.
he knows what he's doing, and like there was a large chunk of that it was not with his daddy's team. So like, there's
Yeah.
a testament to like he's been able to keep his job this long, not just because his last name is also on the team that he drives for. I also just don't think Bobby would play that game. I think if he thought it was time for Graham to go to the house, like that would be it. But I will say, I feel like there has been pace in that RRL car that we have seen glimpses of in practices in the Barber testing, to be quite honest. If you
Yeah,
remember back
that's
to
true.
that, I think it was the morning session, I think it was fifth that Graham was, and like that was kind of shocking. We've seen Devlin actually, you take out of half the time of like, what is he doing? You take that out of the equation, then you have like, there's been some times where he's been up there. It's like, huh, that's interesting. Louis Foster has had two really good qualifyings, and then unfortunately, just kind of like by no fault of his own, kind of gotten screwed over by the racing gods. That I think that it's clear that that car has some potential somewhere in it. And I think if anyone based on history and based on the fact like he has won, like the man knows what he's doing. I think Graham Rahal could pull it out. And I don't think, him getting fifth at Barber in the testing was just like a weird testing coincidence. Not completely, not when the lap times were that close. So can't tell you for what. Watch Graham Rahal. The second one, Rinus VK. Now mind you, this was several years ago with Ed Carpenter, so completely different team, but he has had a podium finish at Barber. He likes the track. He's usually really good at the track. He's shown that he can pull stuff out of that DCR car this year that's like, the car's not supposed to be doing that, but good on you, Rinus. So we'll see what that really holds to, if anything. But I think like I'm not putting a lot of faith in the Delcoin car, but I am putting faith in Renus that like I think there may be some sort of surprising outcome there. I'm not saying podium by any means. I just think there could be like a higher finish than maybe like you would think should be where a DCR car is.
Yeah. I feel like that's been such like a topic of conversation around Renus though for a consistent time period. I remember talking about that last year too. So like he's very capable of putting cars way above where they honestly probably deserve to be just because he's that good of a driver. So I will agree with that stance. I think that's a good one to watch. And we also haven't really I feel like we haven't seen much.
Well, we saw it at St. Pete. We
Fair.
saw it. He had a top 10 finish at St. Pete. We saw it at St. Pete. And that's why I'm saying, like, I think it's there to be extracted. There's only so much that car has, but I think Renus can get everything that's in that car out of it.
He's done it before. He's very capable of doing it again. So,
Exactly. But I think that's it. Those are my two to watch, Graham Rahal and Renus VK.
all right, there you go.
I'd say we could go through the championship standings again, but they have not changed, except I have beef with the IndyCar app at the moment because the Fox broadcast told me that Alexander Rossi was a reaction cam came up saying I was raising my hand. Okay. Anyways, beef with the IndyCar app because like I read off the championship standings from like the Fox broadcast and it had Alexander Rossi in 10th place. Well, the IndyCar app is saying that Joseph Newgarden is in 10th place. They're tied on points right now. And yes, Joseph has a third place finish, but the other two races, Alex has finished higher. I'm not getting out the rulebook to figure out what is the tiebreaker decision, but I think it's really stupid.
Okay, so according to Google, it says if two or more drivers tie in points, the championship is determined by the number of first place finishes, then second place finishes, and so on until a winner is determined. If the points are still tied, after considering race finishes, the championship goes to the driver who led the most laps.
So since Joseph finished third,
Third.
that is why he is higher. But I still think
Correct.
that's stupid. I think it should be an average. I know I'm not IndyCar, but I think it should be an average across your race finishes. like that would make sense across the whole season if it was an average, because you then would have an average more higher place finishes. But I think like, okay, Joseph finished third in one race, and Alex finished eighth, and then Alex finished 10th, and then like 15th, and then like Joseph finished like 20th, and then like whatever he finished with a seatbelt issue, pretty down low. Like, and you're saying that like one third place is better than those others where it's like, consistently top 15? Like, I get it's the rule, but I think it's stupid
Yeah, I don't know. Listen, I'm not good with math.
because that would mean like Rossi's like average finish is 13th versus Joseph's would be like, okay, so he finished third, 13th, and 27th, which would make his average, like, his average 14th versus Rossi has finished 15th, 8th, and 10th,
Okay.
which is an average place of 11. Technically, Rossi has had better race finishes across all three races than Joseph Newgarden has. Which to me, I think means more because it shows more consistency than one third place finish. And if we are comparing, maybe not the championship, even for the championship, though, quite honestly, I think if we're comparing it at that point, consistency should be more valued than one good finish. But as the rules are written, it's saying it values one good finish over that consistency of a bunch of races. Thank you. I've said my piece.
And end rant. Well, now we know something new about the rules,
But they're
and we
dumb.
know how Megan feels about statistics.
All right. I think we're done with Barber.
Keep an eye out on our socials for Barber content because we're going to be there from Thursday to Monday.
Yep.
So lots of content coming at you.
And speaking of that, and our socials, make sure you are following us on Instagram, TikTok, Racing Thoughts Podcast, and on Twitter at Racing One Thoughts. As Meg said, we will be posting from Barber all of our stuff. Next week, we will be back with. Well, we will be on the way to Birmingham at that point, but y'all will be listening to us gear up for the month of May. So, while we are getting ready for Barber, it will also be kind of shifting gears and getting ready for everything that is the Indy 500.
Indeed. So we'll see you next time then, I guess. Bye.